To surprise my fiancé, I'd pulled an all-nighter for an entire week to wrap up the overseas project, then flown back stateside. At the bar I ducked into for a quick whiskey, I accidentally overheard Dylan and his buddies talking. "Dylan, are you seriously going to marry Sterling?" "Yeah." "Then what about Brielle? You can just let her go?" "Quit the nonsense, I only see Brielle as a little sister." The other man dragged out a long O, unmistakably teasing. "Fair point, people like us rarely get to pick our own marriages." Still, Dylan's got moves. Crane got Vance to become Brielle's patron, so nobody would ever suspect you too. Brielle, my charity protege, a Hudson University junior 2 classes below Dylan and me. 3 years ago, when Sterling first proposed the alliance with Vance, I'd just finalized the scholarship program for low-income students. Dylan recommended Brielle. Interesting. My fingers froze on the door handle. The night had already blindsided me. I'm wired for numbers, not tears, yet something inside me twisted painfully. Click-clack of stilettos on the stairs. Instinctively I flattened around the corner. The chatter in the private lounge died for a second, then erupted in wolf whistles. Somebody called out, "Little sis-in-law." Brielle had arrived. Scram. Dylan's voice, technically a curse, laced with fondness. The girl sounded timid. "Dylan, it's your birthday and I don't have anything nice. This scarf is hand-knitted. I hope you don't mind." More hooting. "Come on, Dylan, wrap it on." Little sis-in-law poured her heart into it. "Stop joking, I really do treat Dylan like a big brother." She seemed frantic now, creeping in. "Besides, Crane's getting married soon. If the future hears this she'll misunderstand. Serena's not the unreasonable type, it's only a joke." Before I noticed, my knuckles had whitened around the strap of my bag. The bite of leather into my palm jerked me back. 1 inch good brother, 1 good little sister. Should the future bride fuss even a little, she'd be branded irrational. Huh. A minute earlier I'd planned to leave. I believed whatever lay between Dylan and me should be settled in private, not turned into a circus. Now I've changed my mind. Why should I be the only one choking on this rotten taste? The instant I pushed the door open it felt as though someone hit pause. Every face wore a different guilty version of surprise. Brielle was half bent, about to claim the seat beside Dylan. Seeing me, she straightened, guilt flashing. I smiled thinly. "What crimes did you clowns commit? You're all looking at me like rabbits caught in headlights." Awkward laughter ricocheted. "The sis-in-law loves joking. Dylan said you were stuck overseas negotiating, turns out it's a surprise." "Exactly." I let my gaze rest on Dylan, then Brielle. "So, Dong, surprised?" Before Crane could answer I feigned delight. "Brielle? Didn't expect you at this party." Up to tonight Dylan had acted like a stranger to her. On the few occasions Crane accompanied me to Hudson events, they'd barely nodded. Brielle hadn't expected me, words failed. Dylan stepped over and slipped an arm around my shoulders. "Sheen thought you'd be here, that's probably why she came." "Serena, thank you for flying back for my birthday." As always, Crane delivered tenderness on cue, steering me to the seat beside him. Brielle had to shuffle away, a flicker of mortification in her eyes. Had I not eavesdropped, who knows how much longer I'd have played the fool. I looped my arm through his, all affection. "I pulled all-nighters just to race home for your birthday. You still haven't answered, are you surprised or not?" "Of course I'm surprised. But I hate seeing you exhaust yourself. It's only a birthday, we have all the time in the world. As long as you're happy." I caught Brielle, now chairless, hovering. Had I not shown up, she'd be sitting right next to him. Funny, such a big private lounge and not one spare seat. Ms. Park standing there looks like waitress service. Dylan's face darkened visibly. Missing his pet already? Someone tried to smooth it over. Ms. Park came last minute. Last minute? I was the crasher here. I cut in. "Guests are guests, tell the waiter to bring 2 more chairs." "2?" the man echoed. "Yes. My assistant is dropping off a folder, I can't let him work on an empty stomach this late." As the words left my mouth the door opened and a tall, long-legged man stepped in. The waiter arrived with 2 extra chairs. Dylan, probably loathing the idea of Brielle beside my assistant, said, Sheen isn't used to these scenes, maybe head home first." I pretended to pout. "Nonsense. Ms. Park is here, she stays for dinner at least." Dylan opened his mouth again, but Alex cut him off. Serena, the formal contract for the overseas project just came through. The way Crane called me Serena made Dylan's brow twitch. I stood, moved to Alex's side, and sat, poring over the contract. Brielle froze mid-step, caught between sitting and fleeing. Only the chair beside Dylan remained, and she didn't dare. Everyone in this circle knows I'm not just a workaholic, I control Vance. However pissed they are, nobody dares cross me to my face. I leaned slightly toward Alex, discussing clauses, and by the time I signed off, 10 minutes had passed. Finally I glanced up. Ms. Park, still standing? Sit, please. The room sank into dead silence. I now occupied the seat opposite the host. I looked more like a detached auditor. If Brielle dared to take the spot next to Dylan, fireworks would follow. Alex added, James wants a video call tonight about next phase rollout. I nodded. I did fly back in haste, lots of details remain. What time? You didn't pick up, so I set it for 9, any later and their side schedule tightens. I patted his shoulder approvingly. Good call. Alex checked his watch, feigning hesitation. But, you're still celebrating Sterling's birthday. Should I? I waved him off. Don't be silly. Sterling isn't petty, Crane knows work is work. I looked around. Right, everyone? They grinned like clowns in pain. Dylan read the room. Crane must have realized I'd overheard. Serena, are you misunderstanding something? I rose, pulled a square gift box from my bag, nothing but a freebie tossed in when I'd bought his real present. What is there to misunderstand? I tilted my head. Or are you imagining things about Alex and me? Don't be silly, I rushed home for your birthday, didn't I? Here, sweetheart, happy birthday. Alex already had my coat draped over one arm, my purse in hand, every job a boyfriend should perform. Dylan couldn't take any more. Crane stood and came toward me. I didn't give him the chance, bidding the room a bright goodbye and walking out. Crane didn't follow, whether wounded pride or guilty conscience, I no longer cared. Vance, how did I do tonight? I said nothing. The contract had originally been scheduled for tomorrow. I was the one who texted him to come play rescue. I've always kept my ledgers balanced. Crane lied to me, used me. Crane deserves every ounce of my counterpunch. Not bad. Next time, dress down a little. The contrast will really advertise how special you are around headquarters. I tossed the gift box from my bag into his hands. Starting tomorrow, you wear it every single day. I'd only given Dylan the promo cufflinks. Even Crane could tell they were the throw-ins. Since Crane insists I should be magnanimous, I expect him to live up to the same standard. But this, it's too expensive. True, a near $1 million wristwatch probably felt extravagant to him. It had been bought for Dylan, so to me it might as well be trash. Take it when I give it. There was no board meeting. I just needed an exit line, leaving Dylan alone to claw at his own curiosity. The second I walked into my house, a message from Dylan popped up. Serena, you've got this all wrong. Tonight Big Lay and the buddies threw me a birthday dinner. They shot their mouths off. I already scolded them. Crane probably assumed I was still in a meeting and didn't dare call. After 3 years together, Crane did know me. Crane knew nothing annoyed me more than work interruptions. I darkened the screen and pretended I hadn't seen. Another buzz. Irritating. Ours was a textbook dynastic marriage, yet we'd also grown up side by side. When Sterling was teetering and came begging for a marital alliance, I'd hesitated. To me, love had never entered the equation. We were at best lifelong acquaintances. Crane was the one who launched a full-on courtship, vowing to cherish me forever. Ultra-rational as I am, promises mean little, but Crane did rack up a list of kindnesses, spoon-feeding me when I was sick, driving across town at 2 a.m. for some snack I craved, making sure I was on his arm at every gala, sculpting himself into the son-in-law of my parents' dreams. Given my temperament, Mom and Dad feared no man would ever sign up for life with me. If someone had to inherit their worries, at least Dylan's file was fully vetted. If not for last night's circus, I might still believe Crane loved me to the bone. The phone lit up again. I glanced. In addition to Dylan's barrage, there was one from Alex. Vance, should we keep releasing the funds for Brielle? Under the line was an attachment. By accident, it was already 5 a.m. I opened the email. Photos, receipts, boarding passes, years of private rendezvous between Dylan and Brielle. Tucked in was a Sterling employment contract. The kid worked fast. In a few hours, Crane scraped together more intel than I'd expected. Next morning, after breakfast, I headed out and found Dylan cradling a bouquet of roses. Crane looked as if Crane waited ages. Crane smiled like yesterday had never happened. I'll drive you to headquarters. I don't believe in love, yet I like roses, not for their symbolism, just for their loud, shameless, in-your-face scarlet. Alex's overnight dossier had included a purchase log from Dylan's favorite florist, hundreds of entries, more than half for white jasmine. I ignored his offer. The corners of his smile drooped. Serena, I already explained, last night was a gag that got out of hand. Let me host dinner tonight, the buddies can apologize to you in person. What are you talking about? I'm drawing a blank. I straightened my collar. Did you even do anything worth mentioning yesterday? I've been glacial since childhood. After we got engaged I did thaw slightly. Or more accurately, Crane melted a layer off me. His devotion had been so meticulous that nitpicking felt petty. Besides, Crane would become my husband, and that prospect seeded a faint psychological dependency, a tolerance. We stood on the same public stage. I had never let him lose face. Last night was the first time I'd left him hanging. Dylan felt as if Crane punched cotton. We're getting married next month. We should clear the air now. My red roadster idled at the gate. Alex stepped out. Morning, Serena. I'm your ride today. No need, Dylan started. I'm here. We answered together. Dylan stared, incredulous. You're letting him drive you? I nodded, ever thoughtful. I sign his paychecks, chauffeur duty fits the job description. Your desk is stacked, isn't it? Run along. As I brushed past Crane caught my wrist, voice low. Serena, I smiled and peeled his fingers away. What exactly are you throwing a tantrum about? I caught the telltale twitch between his brows, his private earthquake. If it's urgent, drop by my office. Not now. I smoothed his collar with deliberate tenderness and took the roses. Or we can talk tonight. My sudden softness let him exhale, though Crane still preferred to plead his case immediately. If funding Brielle upsets you, pull the plug anytime. So Crane was sure I'd stood outside that door last night. With Sterling's stock rising thanks to Vance, requisitioning lobby footage was child's play. Upset? Over a little joke by your friend? I barely noticed. Dylan, my breezy detour was the last reaction Crane banked on, which only churned his anxiety faster. I hadn't expected Brielle to show up. In my office she wore white linen like a penitent schoolgirl. Good morning, Vance. Speak. Until then she'd been a blur. Not a raving beauty, but the halo of meek fragility she projected, fingers braided in distress, made her resemble a quivering mouse, not lovable, yet stomping her would look sociopathic. She peeked at my expression. Vance, I came to clarify that night. Dylan and I are nothing. You funded my education for years, I'd never betray you. I signed the last sheet, capped my pen. Noted. Anything else? Brielle. Her script had called for shouting and slapdowns. My indifference left the stage lights dark. Vance, I know you're angry, but you can't frame Dylan and me. She really couldn't read the room. I cut in, bored. Whatever happens between Dylan and me is none of your business. And relax, Vance will keep cutting tuition checks until you graduate. Taylor. Serena was still going to sponsor her? The door swung open, Dylan barged in, Alex trailing with a shrug. Sorry, Serena, Sterling was too worried about Mississippi Park to be stopped. Nonsense, I was worried Serena might misunderstand Brielle. Alex nodded solemnly. Right, Sterling feared Serena would bully Ms. Park, hence the heroic entrance. Dylan yanked at his tie. You, out. Alex ambled toward the corridor, accepted the freshly brewed latte from my assistant, doubled back and parked it on my desk. Serena, looks like Ms. Park and Sterling coordinated their visit, maybe it's important. Should we bump the 10 o'clock? No. For the first time I watched Dylan lose his composure, apparently Brielle mattered that much. Dylan found out Brielle had come to Vance and assumed Serena was picking a fight. Crane never imagined Brielle had walked in on her own. His face cycled through several ugly shades. Serena, I was just. Sterling, you know I don't discuss personal matters during office hours. Dylan glanced down at the cufflinks in his shirt sleeves, exactly the freebies handed out at the brand event Crane attended with Brielle while Serena was overseas, the one whose billboard had featured a priceless wristwatch. Brielle sensed Dylan's mood the moment she left Vance. Tears spilled before she reached the sidewalk. Dylan, did I mess up? I was only afraid Vance might get the wrong idea about us, so I wanted to clear the air. But she didn't seem to care at all. Dylan shoved his irritation down. This has nothing to do with you. Don't go looking for Serena again, understood? But what if she keeps misunderstanding you? Crane answered like Crane was trying to convince himself. Once she's finished throwing her fit, everything will go back to normal. They'd been together 3 years and were about to marry. Serena had feelings for him. That certainty soothed him. Stop overthinking. Serena promised to keep sponsoring you, and she will. Even if she spitefully withholds the money, I'll find you a new patron. Emery sobbed harder. Dylan, why are you this good to me? Enough tears. Just focus on your internship at Sterling. After Crane calmed Brielle, Dylan sat in his car, face dark. Crane was furious Serena had publicly slapped him with a cheap giveaway. How petty could she be? Crane only pitied Brielle and wanted to help. Crane hadn't actually cheated. There was no need for Serena to be so aggressive. Clearly, 3 years of treating her well had gone to her head. She no longer took him seriously. When would she realize a woman's eternal trump card was tenderness and thoughtfulness, not an ice-cold power suit? Dance's gala was booked at its own 5-star hotel. Every notable in Riverdale had been invited. Dylan didn't receive his invitation until the morning of the event, just as Richard dropped by to discuss wedding plans. The old man had survived decades in the market. A single clue could spell trouble. A same-day invitation to a Vance party? You and Serena squabbling again? No. Probably just an oversight. An oversight? Richard narrowed his eyes. Better be. Our new energy project is ramping up, and we still need Vance's follow-up funding. Don't make waves. Dylan kept his expression blank. Got it. Vance's overseas project was running smoothly. Once finalized, it would push the headquarters to the next level and secure a foothold in cutting-edge tech. Naturally, the gala's purpose was to lock in better partners, and Sterling wanted a slice. Serena knew Richard had long coveted the tech space. Sadly, Sterling's cash was limited. Maintaining the status quo counted as a win. Any grand overhaul was fantasy. Dylan arrived late, probably to punish her for the last-minute invite and leave her to greet guests alone. Her parents were even later, flying back stateside that evening. When they stepped in and saw the man at her side, they froze. They knew their daughter never gambled with company reputation, curious, but silent. Dylan, however, couldn't take it. Crane strode over, barely clinging to courtesy. Serena, who is Crane? I slipped my arm through Nathaniel's. Crane, may I present my fiancé, Sterling? My openness made him look hysterical. As my betrothed, showing up late to such an event, what would people think? Dylan, this is Crane's CEO, Nathaniel. Thanks to him the deal closed. Crane's now a minority stakeholder. Dylan, all the partners are set? Yes. I waited several days, but you never came, so I assumed Sterling had bowed out. I asked Crane to step in so the project wouldn't stall. Dylan knew the deal. Serena had promised Sterling a slice before she flew overseas. Crane waited for her to bring it up, unwilling to look like the supplicant. But because of Brielle, because of groundless rumors, she'd gone back on her word. Not only had Sterling lost that foothold, she'd flaunted another man as her escort, an open slap at the Sterling name. Serena, we need to talk. After the gala, Crane called. I was scolding Alex, so I answered without looking, hung up the instant I heard Dylan's voice, then muted the phone. So Nathaniel is your cousin? I'd been ambushed too. My plan had been to parade Alex and humiliate Dylan, but Alex never showed. Nathaniel appeared instead. Alex stayed silent, an admission. Crane's crown prince is your cousin, yet you work for me? This time Alex spoke. Same difference, isn't it? Like hell it is. Nathaniel's your brother, we're not related. Don't feed me that earn your own way line, save it for someone gullible. A talent like Alex, and Crane would let him drift to me? Please. Nathaniel and I are alumni and rivals, we've sparred plenty. Crane's decisive, deep-pocketed, tough to beat. I never pegged him as the project's second largest shareholder after Vance. Hard not to suspect Alex of spying. A honey trap? Crane'll be disappointed. I enjoy good-looking men, but I have rules. Even if I ditch the Sterling alliance, I won't let anyone meddle with my interests. Alex's next line made me spray coffee. Crane sounded utterly reasonable. My brother said you'll be my sister-in-law, so Vance will be family anyway. The office went pin-drop quiet. Realizing Crane overshared, Alex tried to backpedal, then gave up. Serena, 10 Dylans can't match my brother. Crane and Brielle are anything but innocent, all that brother-sister act while they flirt. These 3 years Crane's played the perfect boyfriend to your face and coddled her behind your back. Hold on, those photos of Dylan and Brielle came from Nathaniel? Alex drooped. Basically, yes. Serena, my brother acts cold, but that's for outsiders. When Crane heard Dylan cheated, Crane tore through 3 years of dirt in a few hours, terrified you'd be fooled. I only felt humiliated, my rival witnessing my mess. I'd wondered how Alex dug so fast. I figured Crane had help. As long as it served me, I wouldn't nitpick methods. I just never connected him to Nathaniel. Nathaniel and Dylan were different. If Dylan was a hidden schemer, Nathaniel was a brazen autocrat. Sterling's strength was far from enough to control me, so the alliance with Sterling might look like Vance throwing them a lifeline, yet it was still a mutually beneficial partnership. With Sterling propping up certain legacy industries, Vance could swing the axe more freely, but Crane was another story. Under Nathaniel's leadership, Crane had completed its pivot from legacy sectors to e-commerce and then to tech years ago. It was the undisputed flagship. I had no certainty of outmaneuvering him, and I didn't care to be outmaneuvered either. I returned to the family mansion and found an uninvited guest. My parents sat in the main seats, calm and poised, chatting with the Sterling father and son. When they saw me, they exhaled in relief. I'd been buried in the new project launch lately. Half a month had slipped by before I noticed. Neither of us was ever idle, and long separations were routine. This one wasn't the longest, yet it felt as if a chasm had suddenly opened, yanking us farther apart. Crane looked tired, presumably from the capital injection talks. Richard had clearly lectured him. When Crane met my eyes, their expression was mixed, helpless, resentful. I had already told my parents about Dylan and Brielle, forwarding them the email Alex sent me that night. Vance might not be absolute top-tier old money, but it outgunned Sterling by miles, and only decades of friendship kept my father from exploding. Richard beamed the instant Crane spotted me. Serena's back. Victor, how did you get so lucky, raising a daughter this capable? My father chuckled. We only have the one girl. I'd rather she didn't push herself so hard, but she won't listen. I know you dote on her. Once the kids are married, Dylan can lighten Serena's load. The smile froze on my father's face, my mother's expression cooled as well. Neither answered. Even Richard could feel the shift. Crane nudged Dylan. Didn't you bring Serena a gift? Show her. It was a diamond necklace. I lifted it, studied it, and smiled. Sterling, this piece is certainly valuable. If it isn't a knockoff, it should fetch several million. Impossible. Dylan won it at auction for you a few months ago. Richard knew fine jewelry. The moment it touched his palm, the problem was obvious. His smile collapsed. Dylan's brows twitched upward. Rumor said Serena disliked gems. Outside major galas she rarely wore any. Crane assumed she wouldn't know the difference. My mother's lips curved without warmth. Richard, you're too generous. Even if it's a knockoff, the stones are real. It can't have been cheap. We all know Sterling's situation. There was no need. My father, mindful of old ties, finally spoke. Since you're here today, I was planning to discuss this anyway. A bad premonition seized Richard. Dylan's face went pale. Had they not been in Vance's manner, Richard would have broken his son's legs. Crane forced a laugh. Victor, there must be a misunderstanding. Dylan adores Serena, why would Crane give her a knockoff? Butler Uncle Sterling handed my father a photograph I'd specially couriered home. I'd meant it as proof of Dylan's emotional affair. I hadn't expected him to be foolish enough to hand me a fake. I seldom wore jewelry, but that didn't mean I couldn't spot the real thing. My father glanced at the photo and darkened, sliding it across to Richard. Old Sterling, we're past the age of policing the kids. Let the matter run its course. Shot in France, Brielle wore a white sundress, crouched in Riverside feeding pigeons, the diamond on her throat glittering. Richard grasped the implication at once. Furious, Crane flung the photo at Dylan. Who is she? Crane truly hadn't known Brielle existed. Officially, she was the charity protégé I bankrolled. Dylan's first instinct wasn't to explain but to gape. "Serena, you had me investigated?" I smiled coolly. "Or perhaps someone deliberately mailed it to me?" Of course I'd had him tailed. I simply wanted to test whether their love was invincible. Brielle was no innocent. 3 years on my dime, fully aware Dylan was my fiancé, she still traveled covertly with him and pocketed expensive gifts. Such tricks might fool men, to me they were transparent. Guilt flickered across Dylan's eyes. See? Even Crane didn't fully trust Brielle. Caught off guard by his son's stupidity, Richard apologized to my parents and dragged him away. For Sterling, a partner like Vance, able to offer life-saving aid while gaining mutual benefit, would not be abandoned lightly. After the pair left, my father slammed the table. "Tomorrow the headquarters official handle announces the end of the Sterling engagement." "No. Not yet." I vetoed it. My parents stared, incredulous. "After what Crane did, you still want to marry him?" Their looks branded me a love-addled fool. "Of course not. If we break the engagement right after landing the mega-project, outsiders will claim Vance discards allies once they're useful. Our reputation for loyalty is worth more than petty revenge, but you can't jump into a fire to protect that reputation," my mother protested. "Dad, Mom, trust me. I know exactly what I'm doing." Brielle came looking for me. Richard had driven her into a corner. "Vance, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have met Sterling in private. Please, raise your hand and ask Chairman to let me go." Compared with Dylan's birthday gala, she looked haggard. Rumors of her other woman status were already circulating. It was Richard's doing, calculated to force her overseas. Actually, studying abroad wasn't terrible, her grades were mediocre. A foreign degree would gild her resume. If I'm not married to Dylan yet, I can hardly meddle in his family affairs. No, you don't understand. Chairman's doing this for your sake. Once you marry Sterling, Cray'll stop pressuring me to leave. A neat little scheme. I wed Dylan to save Sterling, and she remains his comforting little sister, basking in his care and boosting his ego. "Brielle, do you know why I kept funding you after I learned about you and Dylan?" Confusion clouded her face. "Imagine if I leaked to the press every photo and detail I have of you and Dylan. What happens? A charity protégé who seduces her patron's fiancé would be destroyed overnight." The sponsorship contract lay right on my desk. Brielle went white. She was truly frightened. "Vance, I was wrong. But nothing ever happened between Sterling and me. Maybe you never slept together, but don't call it nothing. Your flavor of ambiguity is slimier than outright cheating." I had no patience left. "Instead of begging me, think how to save yourself. Following Dylan without status can still earn you plenty, but once the story breaks, your life is over." I offered the advice like poisoned candy. Brielle mistook it for a test. No, Vance, I swear, if Chairman spares me, I'll stay far away from Dylan." I wagged my index finger. "Wrong. I've never wanted you to leave him." Brielle walked out in a daze. Alex handed in his resignation, head hanging. "Serena, why exhaust yourself over Sterling? If you team up with my brother and Crane's PR machine, no storm can touch us." "And then?" Crane pushed on. "The fastest way to heal a heart is to start a new romance. My brother's already waiting." "Me?" I signed his exit papers and flicked them back. "When you're back at Crane, put your brain to work, not to paperbacks." 3 days later, my wedding to Dylan arrived right on schedule, 3 years in the making. To atone for Dylan's earlier screw-up, Richard had hemorrhaged money, turning today into a spectacle. Besides the VIPs both families had invited, a small army of press had shown up. Dylan stood razor-sharp in black tailoring. Maybe happiness really does glow. The gloom in his eyes had lifted and Crane looked like the world was his. "Serena, I knew you still believed in me." I smiled. "Of course." The bridal march swelled. I took my father's arm and walked toward him. Our eyes locked, his swimming with tenderness. Everything looked bliss-perfect, like a balloon, shiny and full. That balloon popped when the officiant reached the vows. Dylan's phone rang. I caught a glimpse of the screen. ZX. Crane let the first call die. Then a second, a third, relentless as a death knell. Indecision flashed across his face. Richard started toward him to snatch the phone. I murmured, "Answer it." Might be important. Crane hesitated, then lifted it. Hello. I couldn't hear the voice on the line, but panic leapt in his eyes, never a good sign. Crane forgot the ceremony, pivoted, and started down the steps. Calm down, none of this is your fault. Wait for me, I'm coming, Crane said, already near the door, leaving a ballroom of bewildered guests and me on the dais with tears sparkling for effect. Dylan, you're really walking out on our wedding for another woman? Crane snapped back to reality, conflict ripping across his face, for all of a second. Serena, it's life or death. You'll understand. Wait for me. I'll throw you an even bigger wedding when this is over. I laughed coldly inside. Outside, I looked more heartbroken than ever. What could be worth abandoning your fiancé, Serena? Crane didn't dare say, I would. I gave a bitter smile. Let me guess, Brielle. I've handed you chances like gifts, and you tossed them. Step through that door and the Vance Sterling alliance is finished. Dylan wavered, until the phone rang again, shredding the last of his reason. Crane shook off restraining arms and bolted. Only when Crane vanished did I finally exhale. To keep the narrative clean, I staged a feint and dropped to the floor. There was heavy PR to handle. I didn't even change, just raced to headquarters still in my gown. I found Nathaniel waiting in my office. Alex had used his last day to wave him in. Crane didn't look surprised. One eyebrow lifted. I always knew Vance could run a boardroom, but who knew you could carry a scene? Hollywood's loss. My plan was naked to him anyway. I snapped the train off my dress. Laugh all you want, Crane. And you're here to gloat instead of eating wedding cake? Not at all. Crane set a slim folder on the desk. I figure if your acting chops are this good, we should start a studio together. Crane always slapped and smiled in the same breath. I left the folder untouched. Say what you came to say, you know exactly what. The wedding didn't have to end, just swap the groom. Bigger splash, bigger headlines. I'd already guessed his play. Before the ceremony, I'd spotted him floating through the ballroom dressed to kill, ready to step in once Dylan imploded. A Vance-Crane merger would be seismic, but I refused to be anyone's pawn. Alex breezed in with coffee. Serena, the official handle posted your release. Dylan and Brielle are trending, we're soaking up sympathy, zero splashback on us. Ignoring Nathaniel's scowl, I checked my phone, public opinion a clean sweep for Vance. Someone had leaked the full Dylan-Brielle timeline, pinning every sordid month of our 3-year engagement straight to his name. I raised my cup to Nathaniel. Appreciate the offer, Crane, but I prefer you as a partner, not a groom. Agreed? Nathaniel's mouth crooked. Who knows how the next act ends? Epilogue. Without Vance cash, Sterling's pipeline froze, projects died on the vine. When Dylan finally came begging, the golden boy looked 5 years older. Serena, after everything we shared, you hate me this much? I don't hate you. I just won't be played for a fool. I've told you 100 times, Brielle and I are nothing. You only felt sorry for her. Her neediness fed your ego, made you feel like a man. You may not love her, but you loved being adored. Dylan had no answer. Sterling and Vance had once been equals, but the Sterling slid downhill while we soared. The engagement had become a lifeline for them, and Crane knew it. Knew Crane stood in my shadow. Add my workaholic reputation and his own insecurity, and the stage was set for Brielle. Crane never planned to leave me. Crane just liked keeping secrets. Sure, a woman could never outmaneuver him. Crane never imagined the price would be everything. Only then did Crane see the gap between us wasn't just money, it was vision. Thanks for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? If you liked the video, hit like and share it with friends. Drop your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more, and see you next episode.